Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your little break. We're going to get back into looking at our tax cycle. So now that we've completed our orientation of tax cycle, looking at the windows and seeing how to kind of navigate the program, I think you'll find the second half of our webinar today is going to be a little bit more interactive. So we'll be able to actually prepare a few taxes together. So hopefully you have your tax cycle still open. If not, please open tax cycle. And in front of you, hopefully you have two different little handout packets. I have them labeled handout packet 1, handout packet 2. So we're going to be using handout packet number 1 first. If by chance you don't have those packets, just have this webinar paused and the instructor will pass those out to you now. Okay, so if you would like to make sure you're all at the start window, just like I am at tax cycle, and we'll see what we're going to do first. We're going to take this green plus sign because we have a brand new client that we need to record their tax for, right? We're going to prepare a personal tax. So new 2016 T1, let's click on that. And you should see a blank return open up just like this one. And okay, I'm going to use this maximize button just so that I kind of have it filling my screen. And as we saw before earlier, all those yellow fields are fields that the program expects to see filled. So let's take a second and look at our packet and see what we have here. On the front page, we just have some basic information about this fictional character. Nancy Kerrigan, date of birth, July 15th, 1990. Nancy is single with a daughter named Macy. Date of birth is May 5th, 2013. Province of residence, New Brunswick, Canadian citizen. She's going to allow Elections Canada to have access to her information. She says no, she does not have any foreign property. She's not claiming any disability amount. And as a side note, she also has an RC62 amount that she received in Universal Child Care Benefits of $1,560. So those are all just some key information pieces that you're going to need as you go through the process of filling in this return. That's all the information you have on the first page of your little packet for Nancy. The second page should be a T-slip called a T4E. A T4E is the income that was received for employment insurance. So she was a single mother. She was she was collecting EI, and so we're kind of getting a little picture here because the next slip is a tuition and education textbook amount. So we know now that Nancy was a single mother who was going to school and collecting EI benefits throughout the year. Okay, so we have this tuition form that's called a T2202A. That's the name of the form. We might need to kind of search for that a little later. Look here, she was going to Oulton College. She was taking the veterinary technician course. She was in school for full-time for 8 months of the year, and she paid tuition fees for those 8 months of $6,950. Okay, so we have that's all the information we've been given for Nancy. So that's all that we know. So what we're going to do now is just start the process of entering in the return. So we have everything blank here. And the first thing it's looking for is social insurance number. If you look at the white page, the first page of the handout, you might notice I didn't put a social insurance number. Where does anybody think we would find a social insurance number for Nancy? If you look on the T4E government issued tax form, you'll see that in box 12 there's a social insurance number. And when we have taxpayers come in to get their tax returns done, even during the clinic, it's always better to get their social insurance number off of a tax slip, preferably a government issued tax slip, because the odds of that social insurance number being wrong is much less likely than if they rattle off a number to you that they've perhaps memorized, or maybe they muddle it when they say it to you. If we try to e-file a tax with the wrong social insurance number, it almost certainly will get flagged and kicked back, because if the social insurance number doesn't match the name they have, it's not going to work. But if we can start out with the right one, obviously that's ideal. So we have here the T4E with her social insurance number on it. If Nancy were there, we would show her the social insurance number and say, can you confirm this is the number that you have for your SIN? And she would be able to confirm that. If I ever say the word SIN, that stands for social insurance number. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2. So my top left box for social insurance number, I'm filling that in. Now I'm going to go to her birth date. Her birth date is the first information I have there under on the white page of our little packet. So it's year, month, date. So July 15th, 1990 would be 199007115. So that's that tab. The next tab is for a title. We can put Mr. or Ms. or Mrs. We can just put Miss here. We know that she's a single mom. And for first name, we know her name is Nancy, Nancy. You might notice everything's typing in cap locks. When we did the setup options together, I believe that all of you should have it set up so that it all is automatically all typing in capitals, just like mine is. If it's not, it's not a big deal. If you want to try to fix it down the road, that's fine. But if yours is not typing in cap locks, it really is not going to make a difference for our purposes. But before our tax clinic, I'll make sure you all have it set up that way just for consistency. Her last name is Kerrigan, Kerrigan. And then we can go to gender, female. We'll keep her language of correspondence as English. Marital status. See, if I just hover over this box instead of down clicking it, it just gives me my options, and then I can just float my mouse over the answer I want. So I'm just going to float my mouse over to says single and click single. We don't know of any 2016 marital status change, so I won't be putting anything in. And is Nancy a Canadian citizen? Well, if I look at the info page on the front of the packet, it says that she is a Canadian citizen, so I can click yes there. Okay, the next little section is contact information, so I just basically need to fill in her address. I didn't put the address on that top handout sheet, so where am I going to find Nancy's address? Well, there's a good chance that the T4E that was issued to her has the right address. So if Nancy were there, we would show Nancy the T4E sheet and slip and say, is this your correct address at 55 Albert Street, Moncton, E1C 1E1? And of course, Nancy could say, yes, it is. And we could then enter that address. So let's go ahead and assume that Nancy's confirmed that address. So that's on the T4E. And we have there 55 Albert Street. And the city is Moncton, and New Brunswick, E1C 1E1. Oh, oops, I made a mistake. Okay, 1E1. There we go. And you notice I start to type things like the New Brunswick. As soon as I started putting new, it knew I wanted to say New Brunswick, and I was able to just kind of click it to confirm it. Now, email address is highlighted as if they expect an email address. I did not give you an email address, and Nancy's not here to ask for one. People are starting to choose to provide their email addresses because Canada Revenue Agency is starting to be able to have a portal that they can start to send emails to people from. But a lot of people are still not corresponding with CRA by email at this point. So you do not have to provide an email address or a phone number. Those two are optional. And let's assume that Nancy prefers not to submit either of those. So there's a little question mark here that's saying no emails address has been entered. And I'm just going to put a check mark. That check mark means, yeah, I know it's blank. Just it's okay. So I'm just going to hover over it and click the check mark. And you see now it's not yellow anymore. And now I'm going to go to the phone number and do the same thing. I don't have a phone number for Nancy. I'm just going to put a check mark here to say, you know what, I know it. There's no phone number. I'm not too worried about it. And I'm going to check it. If those fields were absolutely essential and you couldn't file without them, then we wouldn't have just gotten a question mark. We would have gotten a red bar saying that it needed to be filled out. So we'll just go a little further now. So we filled out this first little section on the page. You can always change the size of your page down here at the bottom right. You see the plus and the minus. So if you want it to be smaller, you can see more of the page at once, or you can make the page as big as I have it here. Any bigger than that, you'll lose the sides, but you can make the page kind of fill the area here. So we'll have it like that. Okay, so we're done with personal information and contact. I'm just going to go down a little further and see if there's any other information I need to give. So residency, it says New Brunswick. That's correct. I don't need to worry about that. There's a spot there. If she had a spouse, I would have to put more information about the spouse, but I don't. And it knows she's single, so it's already closed up that section about spouse because it knows that she doesn't have one. Is Nancy claiming the disability amount? I already told you in the slip that no, she's not. And so we'll just go down a little further. There's some yellow boxes here that need to be filled in as well. Okay, so provide information to Elections Canada. She said yes, she would allow Elections Canada to have her information. And Nancy said that no, she does not have any foreign property. So we'll click no there. This box here is yellow, and it will automatically get updated. It's wondering if Nancy's made any money, because so far we haven't put any income slips under Nancy's return. Once we put in our slips, that box will automatically change, and we won't. When we go back to this page later, that box for is Nancy's income 0. It won't be yellow anymore because it'll have answered the question itself once it sees the slips entered. Over here, pre-assessment contact method and post-assessment contact method. That means if CRA has a question, who do they call? Who do they contact? Well, we're always going to choose the client, especially where we're doing the tax clinics. We're certainly not their representatives, and CRA should not contact us. If they have any issues, they should contact the client. So let's always just get in the habit here of saying to contact the client. So there's 2 ways to do it. You can push this little black button, and then you have the option contact preparer or client. So I'll say contact client. Or you can just hover over the yellow, and then here your 2 options are popping up. So I'm pushing, once again, I'm pushing the client. Okay, so now before or after any assessment, if they need to contact someone, they'll contact Nancy. So at this point, we've done everything we need to do for the general info page. And now we're able to move on into entering our slips. Okay, something I like to do when I'm preparing a tax is, you know, I like color coding everything. I take a red pen, and as I enter information in the program, I put little check marks next to it. Okay, so looking at that white page, I could put a check mark next to her date of birth. I know I've entered that in the program. I could put a check mark next to the fact that she's single. I have not yet entered the fact that she has a daughter named Macy. Okay, that does not have a check mark yet. That still has to come. I have put her province of residence as New Brunswick, so I could put a little check mark next to that. I have put her as Canadian citizen. I could put a check mark next to that. The elections question and the foreign property question, I could put check marks next to those 2 items on my first white page of the packet because I've looked after that. I can put a check mark next to the no disability amount. I saw that that was there, and I had pushed no, or I left it at no. The next item is she also has an RC62 slip stating that she received $1,560 in universal child care benefits. So that has not yet been entered. So why don't we enter that now? So the slip is called RC62. There's 2 ways I could look for RC. There's several ways I could look for RC62. I could start going down this all forms list, just start kind of going down looking for it. That might take a while. There's 170 forms there. I can push the F4 button on my keyboard. So along the top, there's a bunch of buttons, F1, F2, F3. If you can find the F4 button and hit it, you'll find a bar will just stick right up across your screen. And I know I'm looking for RC62. And see, as I'm typing, it was guessing what I was looking for, kind of like when you do Google and it does like a predictive search. So as soon as I put RC62, it knew that I was looking for that UCCB statement, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to click on that. And total benefits paid to Nancy were, in box 10 here, $1,560. Okay. Right. Now, I also, can put a little red check mark next to that. Something else that I have not done yet is enter in the fact that Nancy has a daughter named Macy. Okay. So let's go just a little bit past where, if you look on the blue bar, right now I'm on RC62, the UCCB statement. If I just go down about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 lines, create a new dependent. Okay, there's a little green plus in it. I need to create Macy. Okay, so there's a little green plus, and then it says it's under worksheets, and there's a little green plus, and it says DEP dash create a new dependent. I'm going to click on that, and here the dependent information is just showing up. So I'm going to enter this. First name we know is Macy. And it just defaults that her last name's Kerrigan. I didn't tell you otherwise, so we'll assume that is the case. Her relationship, I'm just going to start typing daughter, and it just automatically fills in the rest of the word daughter. Date of birth, we know it's May 5th, 2013. So we do the year first, 2013, May 5th, 0505. We don't have a social insurance number for her. Because Nancy is a single parent, she's able to claim Macy as an eligible dependent, okay? So in this case, we're able to say yes, Macy is an eligible dependent. So we can put yes for that. And that's everything that we need to fill out just to kind of make sure Macy's on the books, as it were. So now you can put a little check mark next to Macy's name and date of birth. You've entered that daughter in as part of the tax. So now we've covered everything that's on that first sheet. So let's go to the next sheet. That's our T4E statement. So a T4E is a slip. So I could push F4 again and type in T4E. That would be one way to find my T4E slip. Another way is to go back up to slips and look through the slips that are common. So there's T3, T4, T4A, T4A OAS, that's for old age security, T4AP, that's for what people get CPP. If I go down two more, I have here T4E, create a new T4E. So that's what I need to do. So I'm just going to click on it. And now I have the T4E slip. So let's see, who issued this T4E slip? Top left, it says Canada Revenue Agency. Canada Revenue Agency. Okay, I don't need to put anything in account number. When you're entering a slip, the most important thing is to realize is the boxes on the slips are numbered. You just need to match the numbered boxes on the slips to the numbered boxes on the forms that are online. So this T4E, it wants to know what's in box 7. It's looking for a percentage. So if I look at box 7 on the T4E that we're looking at, it says 0%. So that already says 0%. So we're good with there. So we'll go to the next box. And I'm just going to put a check. I'm just going to highlight over it because it's yellow and it's expecting something. I'm just going to put a check mark. I know it says 0 and that's fine. Total benefits paid. Okay. I'm going to go to box. I'm going to fill in box 15 first. Box 15 is 15,558. Okay. Box 14 also says 15,558. Okay, so I filled those in, box 14, box 15. You can put a little red check mark as you copy over from the box on the paper slip. Every time you copy something into the tax software, you can make a little check mark to know that you've covered that box. So I can put a little check mark above box 7, a little check mark above box 14, a check mark above box 15. Any other boxes with amounts in them on that slip? What about box 22? Box 22 has an amount of income tax that was deducted. So let's enter that in. $250 for box 22. I'll put a little red check mark next to it now. So now I've entered all the numbers that were on that box. Okay. So I think we've got everything for that slip. We can move on to the next slip now. Our next slip is the tuition slip. It's the T2202A. Once again, I can look for that by going F4 and typing in T2202A. If I go down about a dozen lines down here on the forms, it's one of the very last slips that's listed. So see here it says tuition T2202, just down about 10 below the T4E that we previously selected. And we can click on that and we're going to get a tuition that we can fill in. So let's fill this in. Who's the issuer on this slip? We see it says Oulton College, Oulton College Vet Tech. And now let's just fill in the boxes again. So the box for A, part A, for eligible tuition fees, it says $6,950. And then we have an amount in box C, the number 8. That's how many months she was in school for. All right, so we have entered everything that we needed to enter on that tax. And I see here at the in this light gray bar, like we looked at it in the last webinar, all the different forms that we've kind of used are open. So I have the tuition one here. Next to it, I have the T4E on. Then I have the dependent one where I listed Macy. I have the RC62 where I stated how the amount she got for Universal Child Care Benefit. And then I have that info sheet, which is the one I originally went to. One page that I like to go to show my clients kind of a summary is this one here. It's called T1 Summary. If yours is in this gray bar right above the light gray bar, you can click on it there. If it's not there, you can search for it by pushing F14 and F4 and then typing in T1 Summary. Optionally, you can go down for the all forms. You can go down to Summaries, and it is the second last summary listed there, T1 Summary. Either way, you can find your way to the T1 Summary, and here in kind of a snapshot, we have a lot of information that we can kind of see that's for Nancy. So date of birth, the SIN, her status, her address, her age. This is all at the top. That's from the info page. And then here I have her total income, $17,118. And then I have her credits. So I have here her basic credit, her eligible dependent credit, that's Macy. And then I have here that her tax would have been $2,567, but she had more credits than she even needed, so she has nothing payable. The $250 that she paid into EI is going to be refunded to her. To estimate, and these are just estimates, but at this point I'm able to estimate that she'll get $324.25 per quarter for a GST check. I'm also able to estimate that she'll get $6,650 for the year for the Canada Child Benefit. So you could divide that by 12, and there would be a schedule you could print off for her to show her the estimated monthly payments for her Canada Child Benefit that she'll receive. So this is something you could show this snapshot to your client or to the taxpayer that comes into the clinic and show them the way everything kind of shook out. Now for the tax returns you're going to be doing at the end of your CRA paper tax project, and you're going to be entering them in the tax software, this is the page that I want to see you print. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first step is just once you've completed the tax, you've entered everything that you need to enter, you would then go to Home. You would go to Tools. So I'm on Tools, and see here there's 3 different options for print. There's Print Form, Quick Print, or Print Family. So I'm just going to push here Print Form, okay? And this here gives me the option to print the current form that I have. So here you're going to put printer output, make sure you're selecting the printer that we already have in the room. Hopefully we had that set up before I left. So when we did the options, hopefully I remembered to do the printer for you. And you see you'll make sure it's the right printer. And then the rest of it, pretty much for our purposes, you won't have to change anything else because this is just a one-page document. So once you've selected the right printer, you would push print, and then pick it up off the printer, and you can keep it in your file so that you can kind of see how everything ended up. So that was everything for the prepare module. Now you'll remember in the webinar that we did earlier in the class, there's 4 modules. There's prepare, review, transmit, and print. So prepare is what we did. Review is where I would have went, and I didn't really do it for this one because we had kind of signed off on anything as it came up, and there's nothing. There's a little green check mark here to show that there's no issues that require attention. I can still click to see what were the issues that did require attention, but I dealt with them. So I can click on that, and I can see here that I already told it was okay, that there was no email, and that there was no phone number. So those are signed off messages. And as far as unresolved messages, messages that require attention, there's none. I've dealt with them all, which means that I'm free to go to the transmit and print stage. If this was the tax clinic, this is the point at which you would get an instructor or supervisor's attention to come and kind of just take a peek and compare your source documents to the returns and make sure everything's all set to go. All right, so that is a return that has now been prepared, hopefully by all of you. We're going to move to the second return in our packet now, which is, I should say, handout number 2 package. And this time we have a couple. So we have here Derek Shepard and Meredith Gray. Their date of births are August 10th, 1975 and April 15th, 1980. They are living common law. They have one child named Tanner, born June 5th, 2012. They live in New Brunswick. They're Canadian citizens. They both said yes to the elections question and no to the foreign property question. There's no disability happening here. We can assume there's no universal child care benefits because they didn't tell us about any. And they have also brought medical receipts totaling $650. In addition to that top page, we have a T4 for Meredith from Walmart, and we have a T4 from the Regional Health Authority. That probably means like the hospital for Derek. Okay, so we have everything that we need, and we're just going to take all that information and enter it in a return. So this return here for Nancy, I'm just going to close it, and I don't need to save it. And you can do the same. You don't need to save the return for Nancy. If you want to try to save it, you can, but there's really no need to. We're not going to be going back to it. If you printed that T1 summary page just for your reference to kind of look it over later, that would be fine. So I'm going to close it. And instead of save and close, I'm just going to say close without saving. Okay. Now I have my home screen again, and I'm going to start a new file. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this green plus button because I have a new return to do again. I've got this new couple to look after. So I'll push new return, and it's going to bring me back to that same info page, right, that we've already done for Nancy. So now we're doing it for, well, we have to pick. We have 2 different clients this time, a couple. So we're going to have to create two different people. So Derek's listed first. So let's start with Derek. Derek's social insurance number. Where am I going to find that? Why don't we get Derek's social insurance number from his social T4? So on his T4, it says his social insurance number is 123-456-782. 25 0810. Okay, his title can be Mr. His first name is Derek. Last name is Shepard. We can guess that he's male. We'll stick with him with English. His marital status, I'm just hovering over the box and I'm just clicking common law. And I'm going to say yes, Derek is a Canadian citizen. And now I'm going to enter his address. So his address, according to his T4, is 115 Main Street. And city is Moncton. So as soon as I started to put Moncton, it remembers that I typed it before and it filled in the rest of the word for me. And I put new and it put New Brunswick. So I'm pushing the tab button to go from field to field. So once I see that it's New Brunswick, I just tabbed over to the next one. E1C 5L2. See how it's nice to have it all caps and you don't have to waste any time about capitalizing the first letter of certain words or anything like that. I'm just going to go back up to how I spelled Derek Shepard's name. I should have put an H there, Shep, because that's how it is on our info sheet. We want to make sure if we spell a name wrong, e-file will likely reject the name, so we need to make sure it's spelled correctly. Did I get an email or phone number for Derek? No, I didn't. So I'm just going to put a little hover over it and just put the check mark. That check mark is basically just telling the program, yes, I know I don't have that information, but it's not required and I'm okay with it. Residency, he's in New Brunswick, so that's fine. Now I get down to spouse, and this time when I did Nancy, I said she was single, so it wasn't looking for any information there, but this time it knows there's a spouse in the picture and it wants the information about the spouse. So it's looking for her social insurance number. So let's look at Meredith's T4. Here we have a T4 from Walmart, and it says her SIN is 999999998. And we know from our info sheet that her birth date is 1980 0415, April 15th, 1980. We can give her a title of Miss, and we'll put Meredith, and then Gray, Gray. We'll put her as female, and I can use, and here over on this side, we can assume that they're living together. They're living common law, so that should mean they have the same address. So here we're going to put her address there. Use same address as Derek, and this is going to save us inputting information on her return. It's going to kind of help look after a lot of that for us. So we've entered everything we need for the spouse at this point. Now we're going to go down a little bit. Is Derek claiming any disability or anything like that? Or this is also the place if you would put if this is somebody's final return and they died, or if somebody had a bankruptcy return as well, which we're not looking into any of that. Volunteer firefighter, family caregiver, all different things that you might put in the info page that we're not going to be looking into today. Okay, so for filing, Elections Canada, Derek said yes. Foreign property, Derek said no. And the pre-assessment and post-assessment contact methods are both going to be the client. So I just hover over the yellow box and click the client. Hover over the yellow box, click the client. These two boxes at this point are still yellow, and that's because it's basically just asking me, did these people not have any income? It's because I haven't entered their T4s yet, correct? Okay, so I have Derek entered here, and I have the information for his spouse. I have not, so I can go on to my white cover sheet, and I can put a little check mark next to Derek's date of birth, and I can put check marks next to all the other information that I've entered if I like. And looking down at that sheet, I see that I have not recorded that they have a son named Tanner. So why don't I do that now? So let's say I don't want to look through all these forms to find where to add the dependent. I'm going to push F4, and I'm going to put DEP. Okay. And once I hit DEPE, that was enough letters to get this form here, which is create a new dependent. That's what I want to do. Okay. So I'm going to click on create a new dependent. And this is the same form we had when we created the daughter on the last one. And we know the son's name is Tanner, Tanner. And we can assume his last name is Shepard, although it could be Gray, but we'll just go with Shepard here. I'm kind of doing it under Derek's tax and not under Meredith, so they're together, so it doesn't really matter which tax I do it under. Relationship, I'm going to put son. His date of birth is going to be 2012 0605, so that's June 5th, 2012. Last time with Macy, because Nancy was a single mom, we said yes, that she was an eligible dependent. Well, Tanner's not an eligible dependent because we have two parents in the picture here. So neither one of them can claim Tanner as an eligible dependent. Okay. Next up is time to enter in Derek's T4. There's a lot of quick ways to get to a T4. So I could go back up into these slips and hit T4. But here on these quick links on the toolbars, I could hit T4 on either this gray bar or on this darker gray bar. They both have links to just push add a new T4. So let's hover over this gray bar and hit just T4. And that brings me right up to a T4. And those are quick links because obviously a great majority of people that come to get their taxes prepared have some sort of a T4 that needs to be entered in. So we're still, if you're ever doing a married couple, and I know we haven't switched over to Meredith's tax yet, but if you're ever wondering when you're dealing with a family how you know whose tax you're under, if you just look to your left here, it says Derek Shefford, principal. If I want to flip, if I push this down button, it would give me the chance to flip over to Meredith. We will be doing that shortly. At this point, we're going to stay on Derek's return until we've completed our file, but I can look up to my left and see whose tax I'm working under right now, and it's Derek still that I'm working under. So issuer, that's the person that issued the T4. Top left box, employer's name on Derek's T4. It says regional, let's click inside the box. Regional, already knows Regional Health Authority because I use it often, I think. Authority 1. So you want to type that. Don't worry about that account number. And now we just have to match the boxes. The T4, the first box that has some numbers in it, is box 14. The amount there says $22,500. So I'll copy that. You might like to take your red pen and put a little check mark next to the box 14 because you've copied it over. Then we have an amount for box 16, $940.50. So you can copy that box over, put your little red check mark. The next box that has an amount is box 18, $423. The next box that we see, if looking in numerical order, the next box we see an amount is box 22. We see an amount of $3,000. So we can type that in and then put our little check mark. And the next box we see is box 44. Box 44 has a dollar amount of $167. So let's look down till we see box 44. So we look down here and we see box 44. We can put 167. These numbers are generally in numerical order, but I find sometimes there are kind of a bit of, oh, maybe they're totally, oh no, see, sometimes they're not in perfect order. You see here we get to boxes 52, 55, 56, but then lower down within these additional less used fields, you'll see numbers in that go back down into the 30s and 40s down here. So sometimes you just need to look carefully that you're not missing the box or that you can find it properly. So box 44, we put the 167. I'll just tick that off. And I also know that we have medical receipts of $650. But medical receipts is something I always like to do at the very end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enter in Meredith's income. So I need to flip over to Meredith's tax. So I'm going to do that by hitting, just sliding over here where it says Derek Shefford and just clicking down and choosing Meredith. So it says, do you want to create a new return for the spouse or add an existing return? So I don't have any existing files, right? These are all new clients. So I'm going to say create a new return for Meredith, and I'm going to push OK. Now, because I've already created Derek's information and I put all that information about the spouse, if I go over to the top left gray bar where it says info and I click on it, you'll see a lot of the information for Meredith's already been filled in. So I already have her SIN, her birth date, her name, her language, all of that was already put. So there's just a few things in yellow here that they weren't able to just assume based on Derek's return that I need to go through. So is Meredith a Canadian citizen? So my info sheet says yes, she is. And email address, I don't have one. I'll just put my check mark. Home phone number, hover over it, put my check mark. And I'll scan down. Do I see any other yellow boxes that didn't get filled in? And down here, there's a few more. So she said yes to the elections question and no to the foreign property question. And her assessment contact methods are both going to be the client. So just hover over the yellow box and choose the client for both. So now the only yellow box that needs to be addressed is whether Meredith made any money, and that will automatically get fixed up once we've entered Meredith's T4. So up here on this gray box, I have the opportunity to just click on this T4 button in order to enter Meredith's T4. So I'm going to click on that now. And now I'm in this blank T4 under Meredith's name. So I look to my left here, and instead of being under Derek, I'm under Meredith. So the issuer now, looking at her T4, we have Walmart. Okay. And we're going to copy the numerical box numbers. So box 14, we have an amount of 14,500. So we can enter that in box 14. You can take your little red pen and tick that off as you copy them over. We have 482. The next number to have an amount is box 18, an amount of $290 for our EI. And then box 22 has an amount of $1,200. And it appears that Meredith also had in box 44, we see union dues of $12. The EI and the CBP are highlighted, and that means that the numbers are not exactly what the CBP automatic calculations would have expected, but obviously we need to go with what's actually on the T4. So we're just going to hover over it and then slide over to the box, and you can do that same little check mark thing. So let's just hover over the box and disregard that and disregard that little warning as well. We are looking at the T4 and we know that maybe they were wrong, but that's what they deducted. So we'll just keep it at what they deducted. Looking carefully at the T4, are there any other numbers that need to be entered into this T4 slip? Yes. Down at the bottom, box 85, $850. So let's scroll down till we get to box 85. So it's way down near the end, box 85. And that is $850. And just so you know what that is, that's amounts that Meredith had taken off her paycheck that she paid for private health services. What is the program going to do with that? For, say, her blue means it's a medical expense. So now Meredith already has, before we even enter that other medical expenses that they have, we already have $850 of medical expenses. So that brings us to our last step in this return, and that's entering in the medical expenses. So we can now either search through it through the forms, or we can use that F4 button. So I could go to the worksheets here and find medical expenses. Worksheets, it's just down about 15. If you don't want to do that, you can click F4 and you could start clicking medical. And as soon as I type MED, we have medical expenses worksheet. So we can click on that. And here we have the worksheet. Okay, so we already have $850. If you look a little bit further down on this medical expenses worksheet, if you look down just a little bit down the page under Meredith here, you see that from her T4, we already have the $850 is carried forward. Now, let's enter in their $650. You might have in general, when you do taxes in the spring, you might have different people with different amounts and you can enter that on different lines, but for this couple, we just have that total amount. So that's what we're going to enter. So $20,016, we'll use the last day of the year, so 12/31. And for name of the patient, because we're just given one amount for the whole family, we'll just put it under Derek here. Name of patient is Derek. Payment to, and let's say it's their, sometimes people bring in a statement of copays from their insurance company. So let's just say it's their Blue Cross copays. So Blue Cross copays. The program is predictively guessing what I'm going to type based on previous things that I've typed before. So payment is to, I'm just going to put here copays, and under amount, I'm going to put $650. And if you want to, you can put a little red check mark next to that on the white cover sheet so that you know you've entered it into the program. So at this point, what you can do is you can kind of take a look and see how is it most beneficial to this couple? Should they put the medical all on Meredith, or should they put it all on Derek? So at this point, it's on Derek, and the family is getting, if you look down at the bottom right, the family as a whole is getting a refund of $2,185.15. If your number does not say $2,185.15, it's quite possible that there's just a little error that you'll need to find. So the way that's happening at this point is that Meredith is getting a refund of $667.82. I can see that here where it says balance due, and it's in brackets, which means refund, $667.82. And then the spouse, which at this point would be Derek because I'm in Meredith's tax return, the spouse is getting a refund of $15.17. Let's see what happens to that $21.85 if I change it to Meredith. So I'm going to delete the 100 out of Derek, and I'm going to put 100 over onto Meredith. Instead of $21.85, their refund just went up to $22.43. So they're better off leaving the medical credits under Meredith. So let's go back again and put it under Derek just to make sure I remembered my numbers. Yes, so I was better off going with Meredith. So I'm going to put the 100 in Meredith and take it off of Derek and leave the 100 there under Meredith. And now their refund is up to $22.43. So that's kind of a little banner that I don't think I've showed you too much yet along the bottom of the screen so that you can kind of see where the refunds are hitting. So just a few things now. A few things I might look at. I'm still in Meredith's now. Up top, hopefully your gray bar has this T1 summary. I'll try to make sure you guys have all set that up to be there regularly before you take this webinar on each of your computers. So let's click on T1 summary. And here we see Meredith's summary, and we can see that she had her information at the top. Then we have her employment income. You see it took off her union dues. And then we see the list of her credits. We have her basic credit, her CPP and EI, her Canada employment amount, her medical expenses, and we can see how that brought her tax down to very little so that she's getting most of the $1,200 she paid in tax back. Now let's say we want to see how things look for Derek. We go back over to this top left bar, and instead of Meredith Gray, we have it saying Derek Shepard. Okay, so under Derek Shepard, let's do the same thing. This dark gray bar says T1 Summary. Click on T1 Summary, and here at the top I have the info, and then I have the employment he made, then I have the union dues it takes off, and then there's his credits, and then we see what tax was left for him, and he has tax payable $1,687, but his T4 had taken off $3,000 in tax, which means he's getting back $1,312. The GST credits are estimated on Derek's return. If I'm just going to go back over to Meredith's return here and looking at her summary, the Canada Child benefits are estimated over on her return at $59.22 for the year. The worksheet would show you what that would be monthly. So that's a way to summarize for each couple how things look. This up top where it says family, that's a family summary. I could find it here. I could also find it under summaries, right in the middle of the summaries under family. And here I could show the couple as a whole, what their incomes were and what their taxes are side by side, so they could kind of see where things stood that way as well. At this point, I would like you to print your T1 summaries so that you can have them for reference. You'll all have these webinars so that you can look at them for the remainder of the next few weeks. And the more you play around and get to know them, the easier you'll find it to be when we're doing our learning activities here to go a little bit deeper into these in January. So I encourage you all to do that. And I hope you've enjoyed this activity together. And as you're doing the CRA paper project, the more you kind of go back and look at what we did here, I think the more you'll find that to be an attainable goal for you, is to enter those 4 exercises into the tax software so that you're able to see how that looks once you've kind of gone through that process, and you'll get that extra little bit of practice too. Okay. All right. Well, I will see you all when I return. I look forward to seeing how you've enjoyed this process.